Welcome everyone to another wonderful episode. Well, we're back on this '08 Sportster so we can finish up the cleanup and the restore process on it. We still got quite a bit to get through. We need to start on this primary cover. Also, we got to figure out something to do on these fork sliders that just look horrible. We need to work on the front and rear wheels as well as a lot of other small parts. Also, if you remember an earlier video, we had a fender on the front that came on it. Just doesn't look right. It absolutely looks horrible. It's made for a different size wheel. But I got another one that's bent up that maybe we can do something with. So if time allows, we might do that in this video as well. But first, we're going to start on this primary cover and see if we can't make that thing just look a little bit better and get all that horrible paint that's on it. But let's jump right in. So for cleaning this cover up right here, obviously you guys have seen other videos. You can see it here. This thing is just covered in some nasty flat black. I don't know what somebody was thinking, but anyway, they painted over it. In order to get this right, you got to get underneath all these little bolts, because you've got paint underneath there. Now, we already need to replace the gasket on this thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of pull about 4 or 5 of these off at once, clean this all up with some acetone, polish up these little spots, and then just go ahead and temporarily put the bolts back in there. That way I can get that done before I replace the gasket. So when I put the cover back on, all that'll be left will just be these exposed areas. That'll be pretty easy. That way, I'm not leaving the cover off for an extended period of time. Everything's protected, and I get these done. If you're doing this yourself and working on a project and you want to pull these off one at a time, you can do that, but just be careful, because once you do that, there's a good chance you're going to develop a leak from breaking that seal. It's possible. I've done stuff like that before, and sometimes it works. Sometimes it's just a crapshoot. Let's get a couple of these off. And the cool thing too, this hardware that's on here is aftermarket, but it's really in good shape. So this stuff looks good. And we'll start with that. Well, I really hope this works here. Oh yeah, it's taking it off. Look at that. Get down in there. It's coming right off. I'm kind of amazed this stuff stayed on there, to be honest. I also impressed myself. I actually opened the garage door while I'm doing this. Let's see, these little areas right here, they're just not cooperating. I'm going to clean up nice though. Look at that. I cannot believe they painted that. This thing is going to look outstanding when we polish it. That makes me happy. And lacquer thinner would probably take this off even better. I only use acetone because that's literally what I got in the garage. This cover is actually in such great shape. You don't even need much polish in these little spots. That's all we're polishing now. Yeah, let's hit a few areas just to see what it'll look like. You know, I'm starting to think that with all the grease and oil and everything else that's been on this bike all the years and paint right here, it's actually kind of protected it. This actually looks pretty good. I'm impressed. I didn't think this cover was going to look this good. That looks so much better. I'll get these other bolts off. God, it looks good. Just, it's crazy what was underneath all this. Do a little rinse and repeat here on the polishing for these. Take this off. Oh yeah. Now what's funny is this is one of the best looking parts on the bike, and it was the worst. Here is a nice close-up. Look how much better those bolts look and that top part looks. Wow, I'm really impressed. I'm shocked. You can see how bad it looked before. And we'll do the same thing on all those bolts, of course, on the derby cover and everything. That is great. Absolutely outstanding. Let's look at it from a distance here a little bit. Much better. Makes the motor look better. Well, we'll finish the rest and then get this cover off. All right, let's get this primary gasket swapped pretty quick so we can get right back to some cleaning. Well, off to a good start. I guess I'll add derby cover bolts to the list. Well, is it gonna come off? There. Oh Lord. That's not too bad. There we go. Nothing really bad on the cover. Cover actually looks phenomenal. Great. Good deal. So the only 2 cents I will add with doing something like this is spend the money on quality gaskets. I have tried the Amazon specials before and they don't always work. And I surely don't want to have to tear into this again. So for what it's worth, now for the fun part. Everybody's favorite. Did I get it? I think I did. We are good. Drink up. Why do these things have to be like surgery? When you're doing these little gaskets here, folks, do yourself a favor and put a little small amount of oil or petroleum jelly or something in there. That'll help that O-ring to sit, because otherwise you're going to fight this thing forever. They seal good. They are a pain to get started. Get in there. Ah, forgot something. Boy, I'm stupid. Don't do like I did. I thought something didn't seem right. That would have been a bit of a problem. Why is it not going in? There we go. There, let's try this again. Take 37. If you saw earlier where we had to replace this one, or we had to grind into this one, I actually had a replacement. Remarkably so. And I think it was actually for this. I will take that. All right, primary gasket done. Now we can get back to doing some cleaning on this and make this thing look freaking awesome. Can't wait to see it. Well, so far no leaks on the primary. That's good. Let's get the rest of this paint off. Of course, most of it's already off, which is great. All right, let's move on to the polish. And time for the big reveal. Of course, I'm not even sure if this will show up on camera, but let's try it. Oh man, it looks better. And on this derby cover with all these scratches, that polish will tend to just stick in them. So I might have to go over this derby cover a little separate. Man, this thing looks so much better. Not too bad, considering how awful it looked before. Well, I am rather amazed at how this thing turned out. I was not expecting that. Look how shiny it is. I'm almost scared to get near it. You can even see me in it. It's like a mirror shine. Except for the little spot on the derby cover, which we knew about from where it was dropped, but that's fine. We're going to leave that be. It's not a big deal. What a freaking difference. You saw how easy it was. Just a little acetone, some polish by hand, and there you go. I'm going to roll in an old pic real quick. You can see there just how nasty this thing was and bad. And I got to give somebody kudos for trying. You know, they tried to rattle can it. They did actually take the cover off and rattle can it. I got to give them that much. But getting back to this, though, golly, what a freaking difference. And you can see how that looks up against the motor. Almost newish. So we're going to get to the wheels next. Probably going to start on the rear wheel just because it's the really bad one. But unfortunately, not going to be able to do that for a few days. So we will chat with you folks then. Well, we made it back. We got our wheel up here on the official tailgate workbench. Also got us a new tire on the wheel. Not too bad. We went with this one for a very, very specific reason. It was the cheapest and on sale at J&P Cycles. But let's get this sprocket off. We'll get that rotor off and start doing some cleaning. Come on, get all that. Get. Thank you. For our cleaning here, nothing fancy, just your whatever cheap cleaner. I use a piece of a Scotch pad. I like to use small pieces. Kind of helps them last a little bit longer. And then just a rag. What we're going to do here, don't be shy. Let's get some of this stuff on here. First, see if I can just get some of the high level junk off of here. That edge is already cleaning up. Now for these kind of textured areas, this is where it gets a little tricky. This is also why I like to remove the rotor or sprocket and brake rotor and all that. You can get to all this stuff nicely. I will admit this is probably not the best thing for these wheels, but you know what? They were in bad shape. This whole bike was in bad shape. We're going to do with what we got. And what I'll do is I'll follow up in some of these areas with some steel wool when I'm done. Sometimes I do polish through here. Other times I leave it. It just depends on kind of how I feel. Sometimes polishing it can make it shine so much it actually kind of makes the wheel look a little funny to me. And I don't mean ha-ha funny. Let's see how this looks right here. Oh yeah. Got a little bit more to go. I'm not going to put all this on film or I'd be doing this all day. If you guys know a better way to do this using like a drill or something like that, put it in the comments. I'd like to know. Since I do this quite a bit, I just like to show here on the channel you can do this with basically next to nothing. That's basically how we're restoring this bike. Let's get your hands sore though. I need to like get somebody else to do this while I film them. See, look at that. Big difference. I'm sure it doesn't show as good on camera, but it is looking better already. Oh yeah. Pretty good. Well, I think steel wool ranks up there with zip ties, duct tape, that kind of stuff. So not brand new, but it's kind of hard to see on film. See how this is all just gritty, nasty stuff. And that is all pretty much clean. There's a few spots in there that I'll probably touch up off camera. Not too shabby. Not bad considering what it looked like. And also remember, you would have had a hard time, especially up in here. And we'll have to get to these areas, you know, up here where we can see them, rotate the wheel. But you would have never gotten to these spots with the rotor and sprocket on there hardly. I mean, you could do some, but this is a great way to do it. So we're going to get to more of this and just keep working on this side, and we'll be able to do the kind of like a look of the other side versus this one. Also, for our bolts that are going in here, we're going to do the same thing and polish those up some. So whenever we put the sprocket on there, or the rotor on there, it'll look nice and clean. So it has been about 50 hours or so. We got a little over half of the wheel done. And it's not perfect, but it's definitely better. That's what we're going for. We're not going for show. We're just trying to bring her around a little bit. However, cleaning on this particular wheel has emphasized my theory that this bike, in my opinion, has never, ever been cleaned. This thing is bad for the low mileage it's got on it. But we're getting it. We're going to do the best we can with it. One good thing, though, is the front wheel on this bike is absolutely in great shape. That's the money shot. And also, you know, when you get the rotor and the sprocket and everything back on it, and especially this is the brake side, you get the caliper in the way. It blocks some of this stuff, but I suppose you could get every little speck off, but I personally don't feel like spending that much time on it. Let's see if this is any better. Oh yeah, it's there. Hit a few more spots. You just got to keep at it. The nice thing though on this wheel is the edges, I call them the trim areas, whatever you want to call them. The smooth areas are coming out very nicely. Steel wool's bringing those out pretty good, so that I like. Let's hit that real quick, shall we? It is getting there. A little spot right there. Come on now. Help me out here. Oh, much better. Much better. I think we're going to finish this side. We'll finish this side on this wheel. We'll get a couple of those bolts cleaned up. Not all of them because I want to show it before and after, but then we'll show the kind of flip around and show both sides because this was the worst side. There is no doubt. So hopefully what I'm hoping is the other side will turn out just a little bit better since that's going to have the sprocket and the chain on it, and it should look pretty good. But we're going to get to that and we'll kind of show you guys here when we get done. Well, we got one side done. This is actually the bad side, just to kind of show for reference first how grimy that is. Axle looks pretty rough. You can see there, I actually think I was saying that the side we cleaned was the worst. I think this one might be it. But this right here is the sprocket side where the chain will be. So let's flip her around here. If I can do this with one hand without dropping this. Oh, this is a mess. Come on. There we go. Just a little bit better. Not a show bike, not a show wheel, but it's definitely something I would be proud to ride around on, that's for sure. Look at that. Not too bad, not too bad. And the other cool thing here, you can see our little bolts for the rotor. We polished these up. I left these two kind of the way they were for comparison, just so you can see what you can do. Did the same thing here I did on some other bolts previously I showed you guys. I don't think it was in this video. I think it was the one previously. But same thing here, a little bit of the Scotch pad, a little bit of steel wool, and then just literally polished them up. And one trick for these, take a nylock nut, put it in a vise, and lock those down in that nut, and then you can easily polish them up. So we'll finish these here in just a second. But also the hardware here on the axle, clean that up. Cleaned it up good, greased it off, got all that junk off there, used some degreaser and a rag, and even got some steel wool on it. And the cool thing is, what I like about it is you don't need all those little doodad covers, those little chrome covers. I know some people like them. I'm not knocking them, but you can clean up what you got and you ain't got to worry about it. And a lot of people will go and replace these bolts. There's no need to. Use the factory stuff. They'll clean up. So now I'm going to get to the other side of the wheel, and I'm also going to be not going to polish up the rotor, going to clean it up, but I will polish up that sprocket because it is chrome. We'll show you guys whenever we're done how both this wheel and the front wheel looks, because the front wheel I'm not going to put on camera because it's really not all that bad. All right, excellent progress. So we got our wheels pretty much done. Let's start with this rear one first. And the rear one still has some spots on it. We did the best we could with what we had, but it's definitely a lot better than where it was. And definitely presentable. You can see on this sprocket right here, we got some chrome that's missing. That's okay. We polished it up the best we could. I love how those bolts turned out. You can see the bolts holding those in. Those are just cleaned up with steel wool and polished. Same thing with the axle hardware. That's going to look very nice up against the swing arm. This front wheel, as I said earlier, there really wasn't much to do to it. We just kind of cleaned it up a little bit. Got all our hardware here, including that axle. That axle is going to look really good on that front end. And of course the rotor bolts, when we get the rotor on, that looks so much better. I want to spin this rear wheel around and show you kind of a comparison here on these rotors, these brake rotors. So this rotor turned out pretty good. All I really did on this, I spent maybe 15-20 minutes on this rotor. All I really did was use some steel wool. Started with some coarse, followed by some fine, just to get any of the staining off and stuff like that, and then just did some polish. And of course we got our hardware all cleaned up and everything, and that turned out very nice. As a comparison, I have not done the front rotor yet, and you can see here the difference. It's just kind of dirty. It's not remarkably different, but we're going to go for the same look there. And also on the back of this rotor is very rusted, so we're going to get that rust off just so you don't see it through there. Now, one little tip, you can, if you want to go look online, I know YouTube's got plenty of videos. I'm just not going to do it on this one because I just quite frankly don't have the time. You can get these polished to a mirror shine. There's a lot of cool videos on there, so if you're interested, go check it out. It's kind of a good way to dress up your bike. But these are pretty much ready to go on. Happy about that, so we can have these ready to go. Now we're going to move on to those lower fork sliders. We're going to try to get them stripped down and see if we can't get them polished up. So we're going to give these lower sliders a whirl here to try to strip these down. I actually popped off this dust cap over here, if you can see it, just so we don't mess up the chrome on that. Those things were on there pretty good, by the way, and actually covered the bike up some. I impressed myself, I guess because it's starting to look good. But we're just going to start with some heavy grit stuff first, work our way up to some lighter stuff. See if this little method here will work. I did see somebody doing this online. Figured I'd try it. Oh yeah, it's taking it off. Look at that. Pretty rough. That's for sure. It's taking everything off. Let's just keep this up. I like this. Goes without saying, if you do this, removing everything makes it much easier. I forget the video I watched. Some guy was doing this on his, might have been a Yamaha. I don't know what the bike was, but this idea right here of cutting these strips, genius. Genius, sir. Genius. Whoever you were. If I remember, I might actually put a link to that. Yeah, that's just going to take a little bit more time. But I definitely want to keep it going. I want to keep the sanding going in the same direction. I don't want to change it. I'm afraid that'll look really bad. Sure, you're going to see some lines on this anyway, but it's going to look monumentally better than what it was. We finished hitting this one with the 80 grit. You can see we got all the little sticky area off right there. Just had to keep sanding it, but I'm pretty impressed with this. I was kind of doubtful. Now, there's a lot of lines in there, so now we're going to try with some 320. I don't know if you're supposed to skip up to 320, but that's what I'm going to do because, that's what I've got. But so far, pretty impressed. So let's see what this gives us. Of course, this already feels much better. 80 grit's pretty rough, but it made very fast work of it. That is for sure. Let's see what this looks like. Oh, much better. Probably hard to see on camera, but it's much smoother, and the lines are much finer. So we're going to keep this up. We're going to go through this one with the 320. I do have some 2000 that I might try to hit it with. I don't know if that's overkill or not, but I figure it's worth a shot. Then we'll hit it with some polish and see what it does. There are some spots you can see in here, just some little discoloration. I don't know if I just keep hitting those areas or what. I'm not a body guy. I don't know a whole lot about this kind of stuff. I'm just trying to figure it out. So if I can do it, you guys can do it. Trust me. Ooh, that sounded bad. That's some squeak to it. That's going to make my ears hurt. I can't do that. I don't know if that shows up, but this is definitely grainier, and this is much smoother. So I figure hitting this with some finer stuff, like I said, I've got some 2000, which is probably way too fine. It's for wet sanding. But we'll do that, and then we'll hit it with the polish. But I have a feeling these are going to be a little shinier than I expected. It's kind of scaring me a little bit. But shiny is good. So if you're on the fence, give it a try. This is not difficult. So I honestly would almost be fine to leave this as is. Maybe just do a little cleaning up on it. I mean, that 320, it's got it pretty smooth. You can still see some lines, but good grief, what a difference that makes. It looks so much better. I never would have thought this would have cleaned up this nice. So let's see what happens when we hit it with a 2000, and then we'll try to polish it. This just feels like you're hitting it with a piece of paper. I'm definitely going to put this in my list of things I can do with fork sliders from now on. As I go over it with this 2000, I can just see some of the rougher textured marks from the 320 that I just hit it with. They're just disappearing. We're going to finish this with the rest of the 2000 and then hit it with some polish, and then we'll do a side by side, but I think this is going to be a win. All right. Well, the 2000 did outstanding. I even cleaned them down a little bit to get all the debris off of them. But man, this is so far so good. Let's see what happens when we get a little polish on them. And we'll do a side by side. This is about as far as I'm going to go with these. I bet you could make these things about mirror polish. Mirror shine, I should say, or polish, whatever. Let's do the big reveal. Wish I could have the forks facing forward for a better look, but they're just going to fall over to the side. Oh, wow. And I don't know if I need to polish these more than this or what, but God, that looks so much better. Never, ever would I have thought it would come out this good. I guess I did have a good idea for once. And it wasn't that difficult. That's the crazy part. This was actually pretty easy. No buffing wheel, no special sander, just some cheap sandpaper and some cheap polish and a couple of rags. Let's get a closer look here. Not sure how much that's showing up, but it much better. Let's turn these this way. I guess I gotta get that cap on there. I'm gonna leave that up there until I know I'm done. Look at that. Look at that. Remember how nasty that was? And it's smooth to the touch. You can just faintly see some of the lines from the sandpaper, but you know what? Who freaking cares? Been on the inside. Again, didn't really. Still got a little polish residue right there, but goodness. So as a comparison, that's where we were. Just rough. And the camera doesn't really show the difference. Wow. I'm impressed. Let's look at it from a distance. Oh, yes. And along with that polished up motor, heck yeah. Well, I'm going to continue and do the other side. Once we get the other side done, we only have a few more parts left to clean up. And this thing is getting mighty close to going back together. And that's whenever the fun happens, because we can start seeing it come together. But that turned out well. I'll definitely give that a thumbs up any day. So we still got a few parts here to clean up and get these out here. Nothing really different than before. Just put some cleaner on them and spray them off. These are just easier to do off the bike. Really get them looking good. Well, this exhaust bracket sure is pretty nasty. Just like everything else, we're just going to soak it with a cleaner, hose it down. Well, that thing almost needs to be scraped off. I'm sure there's a better way to do this chain, but whatever. This is how we're going to do it. Well, nothing groundbreaking on the parts we just washed, or some of these we didn't wash because we didn't need to. But at this point, honestly, I'm probably just going to work on these as they go back on the bike. Just little things I'll do behind the scenes. The only thing I'm going to spend time on is probably this crazy chain here, simply because I want that gold to come out. I want to make it look really good, just kind of stand out on that bike. I'm not a huge fan of having a chain on this model year Sportster. That's just my opinion, but it's what's on it, and that's what we're going to go with because this is all about budget. I'm not going to go do a conversion back to a belt. But all this should clean up mighty fine. It should look very, very good. And of course, we got to replace like those levers on that. I've got some levers all ready to go on that. We'll get into those when we start rebuilding. But everything should be, at this point, pretty much almost cleaned up. And then here's a quick update on these fork sliders. I did the other side this morning, and man, they just look amazing. I just can't get over how good these worked. You know, I've always read about this, but I never tried it. Now that I have, I'm just like, I'm sold. I am sold. I did actually hit this one with a little 2000 right here on this spot, just because this area came out so good on this one to keep them even. You can see that just came out almost like a super smooth mirror finish. Love it. Absolutely love it how that turned out. Certainly can't beat it, that's for sure. Well, folks, we're going to wrap up the cleanup or restore part of this bike. I know everybody's definition of restoring a restoration is different, but that's fine. Everything has turned out pretty good. We still have a few parts to clean up, as I just showed you a moment ago. And also there's the question of the tank and the fender, and I'll get to those in just a moment. We'll just do a little walk around here. We'll start back here. The wheel, as we showed you earlier, turned out fantastic. It's going to go great back here with this rear section of the motor where we cleaned it up, or the transmission. Motor looks great. Cam chest cover. Front wheel looks good. Came out nice. Of course, the fork sliders, I can't argue with that compared to how they were, that's for sure. And remember, folks, this was all done with just household stuff, things on a budget. It's all about budget. Motor on this side looks great. Of course, our primary cover turned out phenomenal. And it doesn't leak, at least so far, which is a plus. We'll see when we start running it. And the rear section back here looks really good. Really good. I'm very pleased with how it turned out. So for the tank and fender. So the tank and fender is going to be rattle canned by a friend of mine, just like the previous bike we did. Yes, rattle canning is the cheapest of the cheap. That's all I got right now. So we're just trying to prove you can just do this in your garage without spending any extra money. Is it the right way to do it? Is it the best? No, it's not. It's rattle can. It's cheap. but it should last long enough to give somebody some enjoyment. Maybe one of these days I'll graduate up and actually get me a paint kit from Harbor Freight or something like that. Who knows? But for now, we'll just keep that up. So for next steps, we're going to start getting this sucker back together. To me, that's the most fun part, is seeing all these nice clean parts and everything else that we need for it, of course. Going back together and seeing how it looks, that's also whenever you start running into some problems, especially when you have some custom parts and fitment. But we'll get into that when we start putting it back together. But first, we're going to kind of start on this section up here. We want to get that tank mocked up with a 2-inch lift, as well as get all this center part with this wiring and stuff done. This is, I'm thinking, is going to give me the biggest headache. I don't know, we'll just have to get into it. The tank will not be painted yet until we get that mocked up. It'll just be primed, so we can, I'm sure I'm going to be removing it and installing it, a couple of dozen times just to get it right. But that's going to do it for this one, folks. We're going to wrap it up, and we're ready to start getting this thing back together. Well, ladies and gents, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm actually looking forward to getting this bike back together. I think it's gonna look pretty darn good compared to where it was. So don't forget to hit the subscribe button and stay tuned, because there's going to be new videos to come for this one. Also, going to put a link in the description below to our No Rules Life page, so you guys can go check that out if you want to. But as always, I thank you so much for watching, and we'll chat with you next time.